Hello, everyone, and welcome to StrikeUP Connects webinar, Adapting to Tomorrow, Key Trends and Solutions for Your Business. We're thrilled to have you here today with us. My name is Heather Cannings, and I am the lead for StrikeUP Canada. We're especially excited to celebrate the 2024 edition of BDC Small Business Week as they join us on the StrikeUP Connects stage. So BDC Small Business Week is a national event organized by the Business Development Bank of Canada, BDC, for the past 45 years. Each year, over 10,000 entrepreneurs come together to learn, network, and celebrate the resilience and innovation of Canadian entrepreneurs, and this year is no different. We're honored to be part of BDC's Small Business Week celebrations, highlighting the contributions of Canadian entrepreneurs. So for those who are joining us who may not be familiar with StrikeUp, we are an initiative founded by InVenture. So we are a not-for-profit based out of Cobourg, Ontario that supports entrepreneurs with strategy and financing. StrikeUp was launched as a one-time digital conference during COVID, meant to be a catalyst to connect women entrepreneurs across the country with training, resources, and support virtually. It was a resounding success, and we are now headed into our 5th annual conference this year, bringing a full day of keynotes, workshops, panel discussions, live viewing parties, and virtual networking, all for free, thanks to the support of partners like BDC. With over 15,000 women joining us over the past 4 years, we're thrilled to announce our return on February 27th, 2025. So stay tuned for exciting news and updates by following us on social media. In addition to the main event, we've created our StrikeUP Connects series, which is a free year-round webinar series that continues to engage our community with educational content, tools, and resources from our incredible partners like BDC. If you've missed any of the sessions, you can catch the replay by checking out our website. So just a quick note before we really begin. This webinar will be recorded, so you will receive a link to rewatch or share it with your network along with additional resources from BDC. Today, we are honored to have Karine Bergevin-Chemin, an accomplished economist from BDC, as our speaker. Karine holds a master's degree from the Barcelona School of Economics and brings over 7 years of experience in economic research and analytics. During her 2 years at BDC, Karine honed her expertise in Canadian SMEs, delving deep into the business financing market and the unique challenges faced by small and medium-sized enterprises. Throughout this session, you'll learn about 4 key trends that will shape the future of your business over the next 5 years. Karine will provide actionable strategies to help you navigate these challenges successfully. After the presentation, we'll have a live Q&A. So please feel free to submit your questions in the chat throughout the session as they come up, and we'll do our best to address as many as possible. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Karine Bergevin-Chemin from BDC.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Heather, for this beautiful introduction. I'm really excited to be here today. Bear with me while I share my screen for the presentation today. So hopefully everyone can see. Heather, maybe let me know. Yeah.
Yes, we can see.
Good.
Thank you.
And even before delving into the study, I just wanted to take a few minutes just to explain a bit what the economics team at BDC does. So really our mission is to do some research and find insights for businesses and entrepreneurs to better support them in their decision making, but also to help the bank better support entrepreneurs. So really our raison d'être is you. And this brings me here today to talk about a more recent study that we published earlier this week, Key Trends Shaping the Future. And a bit what brought us there is we noticed in the past few years, we've been through a few turbulent years, right? We had a pandemic, supply chain disruptions, labor shortages, decades high inflation, followed by super high interest rates. So it was a lot for businesses and for the economy in general. And we wanted to look ahead into the future and understand how will our business environment will be changing, and find the things and find the trends to to better prepare SMEs and businesses to adapt to these changes that are going to come. So we went directly on the field and asked about 1,200, over to 1,200 SMEs, mainly small businesses, a bit about what they had to adapt to in the past 5 years and what they expect to adapt to in the next 5. And we've seen 4 main trends. So the first trend we've seen is high costs will continue to weigh on businesses. We've also seen that entrepreneurs are seeing the preference of their customers changing. And so for this, we went even a bit deeper and went directly to ask shoppers, how are their shopping habits changing? We asked 1,500 consumers for these questions. The third trend we've seen is that we expect labor shortage to make a comeback. And finally, the last trend is the importance of technology in all of this. So throughout this session, I'll be going trend by trend, going a bit deeper on each of them, explaining what's happening there, how we expect it to change, and highlighting a few solutions that can help you for each of these. So first one, high cost will continue to weigh on businesses. Pretty sure a lot of you were not surprised to see this one come up. We've had 2 years of very high inflation, kind of record high inflation for that we haven't seen in decades before. And just to make this point clear is that we don't expect inflation to come back to the levels we've seen in the last 2 years. But what we do expect is that those prices that have been so elevated will continue to weigh on businesses because we don't expect costs to come back down. We expect costs to kind of go back at a more normal rate of inflation of what we've seen before. So more around the target of 2% that the Bank of Canada has. And to put that into an image, because images are worth 1,000 words, I've put this graph there. So this is the Industrial Product Price Index. It tracks price of manufactured goods at factory gate. So it's a good indicator of cost pressures that manufacturers are feeling and the kind of cost that is passed down to their customers, right? Either other businesses or directly or consumers. And that sharp increase that we see from 2020 to 2022, that's equivalent of 35% increase in only 2 years. Previously, it took more than 20 years to get that same increase. So this is a very important shock. And this is why we think that it's going to continue weighing down on business, because the shock was so great and so like that it's never been seen before. It takes time for businesses and for consumers to adapt to this, and it will continue, although price will stabilize. I've included here a bit our forecast for inflation and interest rates. So we're already seeing inflation has come back down to its target rates, and we expect it to continue. And what this means, interest rates have also started coming down, and we expect it to finish the year 2025 around 2.5%. So pressures will start easing, and you'll get some time to adapt to the previous shocks. But it's still very important to keep managing your costs kind of daily. What we see with our businesses is that the main thing that helped them integrate and adapt to the price shock of the past 2 years was looking at their numbers daily, managing their costs, and expecting what's coming ahead. So if a price of a certain input was suddenly increasing very rapidly, they could make decisions to help alleviate those impacts. So this is some ways that to help you in the future if ever there's other shocks that are to come, but we don't expect any here. The second trend, customer preferences are shifting. And here I'd like to take a little moment and ask you a question and understand maybe how your own preferences, either as a business with your relationship with your suppliers or as an individual when you do your own shopping, if you've seen anything change. You can answer in the chat if you feel like it. Everything's optional here. You don't need to answer if you don't feel like it. But for example, for me, what I've noticed is that one ways my shopping habits have changed is that when I go to the grocery store, I like reading the ingredients, and if there's too many ingredients that I don't know, I'm gonna start shifting. So maybe I don't know if we have some answers in the chat. I can look. Okay, seems maybe no answers for now, but could be interesting if ever you think about some ways that your preferences have changed. Could be fun to read. So one thing we've noticed is that with high inflation, high interest rates, Canadians have had a tighter budget. High inflation means your goods are more expensive, it costs more to buy stuff. So you probably buy fewer things, or things that are maybe cheaper. At the same time, interest rates that goes up means also you pay more for your mortgage. So even tighter budget here. And we've seen in the data. So that's retail sales per Canadians. It's been going down in the past about 2 years. It's starting to pick up again, but still Canadians have been more budget minded. So what we've seen in our survey, there's 44% of consumers that are seeking the lowest price possible. Again, it highlights the importance of really being mindful of the price we charge to our consumers, and try to manage costs as best as we can to be able to be more price competitive. But this is not the end of it. Yes, shoppers are more budget minded, but we've seen some shifts in some of their preferences. We're seeing more and more that they're willing to pay more for local and green products. There's already, when we ask consumers, 66% of them, for example, were willing to pay extra for local products. So having these mentioned on your products or services can maybe help differentiate yourself on other things than just price. And what's interesting is we even dig deeper a bit on the generations. So what we see is that the Zoomers, our Gen Z population, is even more willing to pay more for these types of for green products than other cohorts. So here we're talking products such as clothes, furniture, restaurant services, um, and when we go even further, it's interesting to see how much more they're willing to pay. And we see there's a third of Zoomers that are willing to pay at least 10% more for environmentally friendly clothes, restaurants, and furniture. So this gives you a sense of what the consumers of tomorrow are looking for. By 2030, we can see that all of Zoomers will become adults. So these are the people that are going to be shopping at your store, asking for your service in the future. And these are a few ways you can maybe differentiate yourself. And what's interesting is we're not only noticing that for consumers, but also for businesses, because not all of you are selling solely to individual consumers. Some people are dealing with businesses as well. And when we ask major buyers, there's 92% of them that already requires their suppliers to disclose at least one ESG, so that's environmental, social, and governance criteria. So these major buyers, they themselves have to respond to some requirements on these criteria. And so when they're looking for suppliers, they're looking for suppliers that can help them achieve these targets and these goals. Some of the top ESG criteria we've seen is related to energy efficiency, diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, and as well as governance, particularly related to environmental risk. Now, our third trend, labor shortages. I don't know how many of you were surprised to see this one up here, because in the past 2 years, we've seen the labor market ease a lot. So the pressures are not as much there. We even see the unemployment rate increase, but this was more of a cyclical phenomenon. With the economy has slowed down a lot in the past year, and it's still pretty slow today. GDP was growing around 1%. This is much below the potential of the economy. But in Canada, we have a more structural issue, which is that our population is aging. So what that means is that a lot of people are gonna leave and are already leaving the labor market to go for retirement. Already, this graph, I quite like it because it really speaks to how big it is. So the baby boomers are biggest generational cohort in the population, and they've already started leaving for retirement. And just this past August, we've seen that over a year, there's 310,000 people that went on retirement. And this is more than double what we used to see in the early 2000s. And that means there's a lot more people leaving the job market than new people to come up and replace those people. And with official forecasts out there, what we've seen is that this should be a problem that will continue for the next decade as well. So it's not just today, it will continue for the next decade. They expect that half of the demand for new workers that will happen in the next 10 years will be due because of retirement. So that means we'll need to find a lot of people to replace baby boomers leaving the labor markets. And when they leave with a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills, and that's not necessarily easy to replace. And what we see in the forecast is that there's a few occupations that will be particularly affected by these labor shortages. So we have health occupations, that's your nurses, your doctors, any health practitioners. I think we're already feeling the effects today. Then the second one would be natural and applied sciences. So your engineers, your data scientists, and finally trades, transport, and equipment operators. So those occupations are particularly concentrated in the construction, transportation, warehousing. So for these occupations, it will be particularly harder to find people, but there could be some shortages in different pockets of occupation. But there are some solutions. And yes, investing in technology and automation is part of the solution for labor shortages. Just automating certain aspects of your business. It doesn't need to be all of them. It can be simply moving from Excel to accounting software, can save a lot of time, a lot of repetitive tasks, and can free up some time for your employees to move on to more valuable tasks instead of doing something very repetitive. And I'm going to come back to technology a bit later. So I just want to leave for that solution is there's different tools for different size of business, different types of business, businesses in different sectors and different components of your business. So it's not necessarily that you can to automate some functions of your business. You don't necessarily need that big fancy tools. There's a lot of stuff that are even free or very cheap, very affordable, and some more advanced and more costly, but already just using, for example, ChatGPT is free. There might be some risk for data involved, so to confirm on that side, but it could be, improving some marketing content to better target to different audiences. It could save you a lot of time just using these tools. And there's other AI and automation tools that are cheaper. And can come with a bit more cybersecurity as well compared to those free products. A second solution that comes with this, it's having a good people strategy. So it can be sometimes hard, especially for smaller businesses, to compete on salary and on packages, but there's different ways to attract talent as well. You can by offering some growth opportunities, a positive company culture, meaningful work. This can really attract people to work with you. What we've seen with some of our clients is that they notice sometimes people are not always attracted to the traditional full-time work that we're used to see, especially since the pandemic. So some businesses are trying new ways to attract them and adapt to those needs that the people, the employees are looking for. I included a quote from one of our clients. She is Sissy Chen from Rumble Boxing. She owns multiple boxing gym across Canada. And she explained that exactly what I've been explaining. What she sees is that a lot of people maybe are students, have multiple jobs, are looking just for part-time work. And so she had to redefine a bit the different roles that she had, look at, okay, what are the roles, what are the responsibilities, and trying to adapt them to the employees instead of asking them and trying to find the employee that was willing to work full time and comply to what the company wanted. So she kind of managed to find a compromise to keep the people happy, keep them coming back, and stay longer with her company, and still find and still fill her needs in terms of work stuff. And the final one is you can also expand your hiring pool. So there's different ways to do that. You can go the training route. So train either new recruits if you have candidates that come to your doors and don't have the skills necessarily that you're looking for, but there's opportunities for them to train and get up to date. Or you can also train your own employees to fill the position that you need. You can consider partnership with schools and university, whenever that's possible, and just also broaden a bit the type of workers you hire. Could be younger, older immigrant workers. So that's another way to ease a bit those pressure on labor. And finally, the big theme of today, technology adoption. I I think sometimes it can get tiring to hear about technology adoption. Like, yes, 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 we need to adopt technology, but we're busy, we have so much to do and all. But one thing I want to, maybe some of the lessons I want to bring here is that what we already seen the pace of technology disruption accelerating, and what we expect for the next 5 years is that it will continue to do so. When we asked businesses how many of them have experienced disruptions to their businesses caused by new technology versus how many of them expect that it will happen in the next 5, we see a pretty impressive increase there. So it goes from 28 to 38, 25 to 38%. And this is the biggest increase we've seen in all of the other categories we've asked. So, and it's not surprising, right? We've seen the emergence of AI that went from pretty much an obscure sector of technology to everyone needs to use it now, so it goes pretty fast, and we expect it to continue going pretty fast, and businesses to have to adapt to it, because your competitor might be starting to implement this, and you have to keep up to be able to stay competitive and stay relevant in the market. So it's important to at least start thinking about what can you do to embark on that journey, if it relates to you and to your business. So there's challenges, right? Yes, it's costly. There's an investment in terms of time and money. It's hard to implement. Sometimes there's times it takes a lot of effort to implement it well and make your employees use it. But once you do, and once it's well implemented, we can see that technology becomes a solution to pretty much all the problems we've talked about today, right? In terms of costs, technology helps you become more efficient. It can be just in a small part of your business, or it can be in multiple parts of your business. But in the end, it still improves your profitability and your cost management. So it becomes easier and easier to adapt to some changes, unexpected changes. The other thing is we see I've mentioned a bit before, it can help you easing labor shortages. And by this, one way is through efficiency, right? So you're more efficient. Well, you need to hire less workers for sure. Your people can do more with less. Just think about, for example, a silly example of everyday life, right? Everybody, I'm thinking, has a washing machine at home. A dishwasher, a dishwasher, right? How long would it take you if you have guests to wash all the dishes one by one by hand? It takes a long time. When you have a dishwasher, kind of takes 5 minutes, everything's loaded up, it runs. While you're doing that, you can do other things that maybe bring a bit more value, that needs a bit more of your attention. You can prepare stuff for tomorrow, you can plan ahead, and it frees up sometimes. So it's the same thing in your business. Having a machinery, software, a little thing that can free up some time and reduce those repetitive tasks, can free up some time that your employees can use and create a bit more value. When we talk to our clients that have adopted some types of automation technology, what they tell us is they don't need to fire anybody, right? They usually keep the same amount of people that they had before, but they manage to create so much more growth. Their revenue grows, oops, sorry, their revenues grow so much more compared to what it was before, without having to hire anybody else. So it really reduces your labor needs. And in a context of labor shortage, that's really important. And interestingly, the other thing we've seen is that it helps with recruitment and retention. So a lot of people are looking for growth opportunities and are interested in working with some tools and some of these solutions because it's a good skills for them. For example, an ERP systems, a lot of people want to learn how to use it, and have that on their CV. So they're attracted to businesses that do have these types of tools in place because it's interesting for them to learn how to use it. And the other thing is that also tools that can automate some tasks and make you more efficient means that it's easier for people to do their job as well. So it makes the workday a lot more fun, right? um, and then it also helps you with your marketing and improving your customer experience. So there's a lot of tools that help you manage your customer relationship. It helps you target better your markets, and it can also make the experience more seamless for the customer, right? It's faster for them to get a response. It feels more natural when they deal either with a website or with some of your systems. Sometimes, it also technology managed to reduce errors, and so it can improve the quality of your services or products because there's less human error involved. So that also is going to reflect on your customer later on. And one thing to think about as well is when we ask our businesses that have adopted solution, how important has it become for your businesses? There's 82% of them that mention that the technology they adopted in the past have become critical to their business. So it's something that it can be hard to adopt and start, but it's important to create a plan ahead and think ahead of your journey. Think of your needs, identify, okay, where can there be improvements? Once you've optimized as much as you can, is thinking, okay, what would be the next step where I could improve some part of my business? And what do I need to get there? And once it is integrated and implemented, it really becomes integral to the business. And what we've noticed is that businesses that have already invested in some technology are more likely to continue investing in the future. So it's often not a one-time thing. So you start maybe small, and then once it's integrated, you can see the benefits, then you can continue and adopt a new one. And the thing is, there are some benefits already. We did a study on AI, and what we see is that 97% of businesses that adopted AI are seeing benefits and are satisfied with the results of their adoption. And part of it is that there's often hidden advantages. A lot of them didn't adopt AI to improve costs and reduce their cost and improve the cost management aspect of their business. A lot of them was for marketing or for efficiency, but 30% still had improved in cost. So there's 30% of businesses that adopted AI and reported improved costs, didn't expect it to improve cost at all, and this was not the reason why they adopted it. So there's a lot of hidden benefits, and that's what brings the satisfaction with these type of technological tools so high. So really, you can see that there are some benefits that comes with it, but that's not to minimize the cost that comes with it. This is why it's important to seek advice, make a plan, and really think about how it can fit with your business directly. And maybe here I also included a little quote from a client that I found super relevant to really show how technology is not the one thing, right? It's not just a solution. There are some challenges that comes with it. So Modi Miyati from Genefood told us, you can get the best software, but if you don't have the right team, you will not be successful because the know-how and implementation progress is also significant. So this is really to show that it's important to think about the whole journey of your technology adoption, not just the what solution to take, but what is the solution? What's the problem it's going to resolve? How am I going to implement it? Who do I need there to implement it for it to be useful? And will my employees actually use it? And that concludes my section. It was a little 20 minutes. I invite you to as well check out bdc.ca. So there's tons of free articles, blogs, courses, tools. There's so much content on there. And it's really on different topics. It's really to help you. You'll find some of the research that the economics do, but there's also some articles and content from um, our own advisory services, our own and other people at the bank that are really there to help you. And I think with this, I want to thank you. I also invite you to go check out our monthly economic newsletter. So here we include every month an economic outlook, so you can have a better idea of what's going on in the economy, where it's going to go. It's updated every month and it's free to download. You can even subscribe and receive it in your mailbox. And with this, I think we can move on to the question section, the question part of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Karine. BDC is an incredible resource for small business owners, and this has been made clear today. So thank you so much for sharing your tactics for future proofing our businesses. So I encourage the attendees here to throw some questions in the chat, but I've got some for you myself. So I'm not sure if you've touched on this in your own research and analytics, but did you know if there's any, like, how are there regional economic differences across Canada, and how do those impact small businesses? So are there certain provinces or regions that expect to fare better economically right now? And how can small business owners adapt based on their location?
Yeah, well, every region in Canada has its own particular economy, right? So there's all of them have their own particular set of industries and composition. So we can think the differences between Alberta, which is very centered around the oil and gas sectors, versus Ontario, that is really concentrated around financial services and real estate. And so you really have a lot of differences. And then what's happening in the economy will affect those industries a lot, which will eventually affect how SMEs are doing. What we've seen with the rise in interest rates, it's been very tough for, especially, it's been tough for everyone, but especially for regions and provinces where they're more sensitive to interest rate hikes. So we're thinking Ontario, where there's a big real estate sector, as well as British Columbia, where the households are maybe more indebted because mortgages are really high, and there's a big, also really big real estate sector. So now what we see is that with inflation, the interest rate coming down, these regions might get a bit of a boost and a bit of some breathing room here, because the consumers will have a bit more money in their pockets when their mortgage payments start shrinking, depending on if they're on a variable or fixed rate.
Kind of on that topic of interest rates, I know we've seen some recent drops lately, but do you have any outlook on what you think interest rates may be doing in the future, the next coming year, 2 years, and how that could potentially impact small business financing specifically?
Yeah, well, the last drop yesterday, 50
Mhm.
basis point, that was a pretty big cut.
Yeah.
Welcome from by everyone, I think. And what we see is more of them coming in the pipeline. So the timing is always uncertain. It's always going to depend on how the economy is evolving, right? If we continue seeing weaknesses in the labor market, GDP really staying kind of slow, So it's still growing, that it's not growing at potential. There might be room for another cut this year. But on the contrary, if we see more activity, regain a momentum in the labor market and the economy, maybe there will be a pause. But we see that eventually it should reach to a more stable and normal level, and we're expecting around 2.5% by the end of 2025. This is the current forecast. Of course, there's things that can come and change this, but from what we're seeing and how it's evolving, this is what we expect.
Okay, good to know. Another question for you that's kind of sector related. So are there specific sectors within the Canadian economy that right now look to be poised for growth?
Yeah, well, of course. So a bit like I mentioned, right? Interest rates are coming down. I think the first part we're going to see that is for consumers. So we expect consumers to start shopping again and spending more. So we should see retail sales going up eventually, and so that will mean any consumer facing business will feel that momentum again. And that will kind of move up the chain, right? If retail sales are going better, well, then it's going to move up the chain to manufacturing, distribution, transport, wholesale, so. But we expect that for it to start with consumers because, yeah, mortgage rates are going to go down. We can also expect with mortgage rates to go down, a bit more pickup in real estate as well. That took a pause for the past 2 years. So this is a bit where we're seeing for growth in the next few months or years.
That, I mean, it's encouraging. So we're happy. We're happy to see the trend that we're on right now. So it looks like we're kind of in an upturn. There's obviously still some challenges for businesses and small businesses in particular. Are there any kind of the key, like biggest challenges that you foresee facing small businesses in the next 12, 18 months?
Well, yeah, for sure. What we're seeing is that at the basic, you need to be able to integrate those high costs, right? So if we're seeing some businesses still struggling financially, so this is the biggest hurdle to overcome before thinking about all the nice other stuff about technology I spoke about, right? We're seeing some indicators of delinquency rate on loans. So that's the percentage of loans that have late payments on them.
Mhm.
They've started coming down, but they're still pretty high compared to historical values, right? So what we're seeing, some businesses are still having difficulty managing their finances. So taking a hold on that, and with the improving economic scenario and economic environment, it should help with that. But this is really the first hurdle to overcome. And then one thing to maybe, if we look a bit ahead, right now is not an issue with labor. So unemployment is still relatively high compared to the past 5 years that we've seen. It's going down a bit. And what we expect is with the economy that recovers and that gains some steam, we can expect a bit more competition for talent as well. So we might not be feeling it right now, but in the next few months, we might see a regain in competition for talent, and not just any employees, but for the employees with the right skills. So it's important to think ahead with this and think about, okay, who will I need on my staff for the projects that I have, and make sure you have the right people in place, because it might get harder and harder to hire eventually.
Yeah, I'm sure that leads to some kind of wage pressures as well from business owners and trying to kind of keep up and keep those key players in those businesses and those players that they really need to kind of take on those tech and AI adoption pieces. So I'm sure that there's some pressure there with some wage hikes that may be required to keep those key players.
Yeah, for sure. But as I mentioned, wage is just one part of the package. It's not the whole part. So it's important to make sure your wage is competitive, but it doesn't need to be the best one. If you have, there's so much more that you can offer, and just having a really an environment where the person can grow a lot and touch on different things can be a good advantage. Like in big businesses, often a person is confined to one role and very limited role. So what's fun with smaller businesses is that the person can explore different parts of their roles that they might not have the opportunity in other environments, and that can be like a value add for some employees as well.
Perfect. And I know when you were talking about those trends too with the Zoomers and wanting to or being willing and open to kind of spend a little bit more on local green practices, green businesses, sustainability is becoming an ever important topic. Are there some kind of key ways that you've seen in research that smaller businesses can start integrating some sustainability practices without significantly increasing some of their operational costs?
Well, already just the first step is already doing an assessment.
Mm,
Where am I at? Understanding, is there ways for me to improve on some things, or am I already doing stuff that can go in that direction that are more sustainable and I'm not advertising it, right? I'm not showing it. There are some certification to get and all, but I think the first important part is to just understand your own business. What are you doing already, and where can you do? And there's also opportunity to mix technology and green practices, right? Sometimes just replacing an old machine that you're using with a more energy efficient one can save you dollars in electricity, and you can say that you're that much more efficient in your energy consumption. So there's some ways to mix the two, I think. But definitely as you grow and go forward, like having some types of certification, it depends always on your market, right? How big you are and who's your clients. Sometimes you can just talk to them and say, yeah, we've improved this, but sometimes you actually need the little sticker on your product. So it's really evaluating where you're at, what you need, uh, but definitely just taking a look at what's inside and what you're already doing and what you can improve can already help a lot.
perfect. And then is there kind of a direction that BDC or you may be specifically looking at for kind of future research? Are there certain topics that you want to kind of look in and take a deeper dive into in the future?
There are so many. There's a lot. Basically, we always want to find uh, valuable insights for businesses, right? We want something that they can take and maybe bring out some questions, right? So as a business owner, I don't know in the group here if anything I said kind of prompted you to ask yourself, am I doing this in my business? Should I be looking at it? Or just thinking, okay, I'll check that later just to make sure that I've got that covered, right? It's not necessarily that we don't expect to have the ultimate answer to everything. We just want to start a conversation and start a like kind of a thought process of making sure that you think about these items, and when we look at what the entrepreneurs kind of need to know about more economic things, we want to understand, okay, what's the impact of business acquisition? What is the impact of different more specialized technology? Today's presentation was super broad, but we'd like to go a bit deeper to bring more valuable insight, like that piece on AI that we did, just looking at AI, what does it bring, So there's so many projects in the pipeline, and usually we always publish at least 2 to 4 research every year just to make sure we keep you informed. So I mean, if you have ideas for topics that we should dig deeper, please put them in the chat, because in the end, we want to do this for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the kind of comments we had earlier when you had asked the question about some of the strategic practices, there was a comment here that some of their clients are currently questioning their costs.
Mhm.
Do you have any advice for someone who's kind of facing that situation?
Um, so it would be really to be transparent, right? If you put a cost, it's be transparent. If you put a certain price, be transparent. What's behind that price increase, right? Often it's just that could be a a good way. The other thing is maybe understanding why they're questioning your cost. What's the reasoning? Were there questions or concerns? And maybe you can bring up yourself maybe a question, maybe you haven't looked at something. So it's good to have it depends always the relationship with your clients. I'm not too sure what it is, but if it's a really close relationship, it's important to have these dialogues there. And in the end, if your pricing is your pricing, it's difficult to change things, and you want to make sure you have a certain profit there. So but yeah, dialogue and maybe just understanding what are those questions behind it.
Fantastic. We had another question. When you were kind of on the topic of AI integration and training, do you have any recommendations for some AI training that you've seen out there, like a GPT for beginners that you could potentially recommend?
I think it would be good then to redirect you directly to our bdc.ca sites. I myself, I don't look as deep into the kind of training that exists, but we
Mhm.
have a whole team at BDC that does exactly that. And I am 90% sure there's at least one article about that. But otherwise, also, it's important to ask people around you. Often it can be a bit solitary to be an entrepreneur, right? You don't know who to talk to, but talking maybe to your accountant, to your peers, to your banker, to your neighbor, like understanding, are they doing it? What are they doing? How have they learned? Uh, it can be very useful.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll be sending an email out tomorrow that will have this recording. So we'll see if we can find any of that, an article on the BDC site that
Great.
relates to that. We'll be sending plenty of links with some BDC research and information, resources. I mean, there's plenty of resources for small business owners. Lots of financing offers. You've got your Thrive Venture for a fund. You can have there's strategic practical advice from network of experts from BDC. So I think even connecting with a local BDC contact or branch could be a good option if you're looking to kind of take a look at your finances and see if they've got some recommendations for you as we kind of battle through these challenging economic times that we're in right now.
But they're improving.
Oh, perfect. Miriam has sent a link here in the chat, so we'll be sure to provide that in our wrap up email with all the resources. Just want to take a quick opportunity as well. If there's anyone here that wants to take themselves off mute, if you've got a question, you can feel free to throw it in the chat or ask Karine directly. No, I don't see anything.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry,
Yes,
go ahead.
hi. Corinne, would you know if there's a resource out there to help mature students get a master's program paid for, like a woman sort of thing? Like,
To be honest, I am not sure, but
okay,
I can go through my resources at BDC and see if we can find something and maybe answer you in the email after.
yeah, is that okay? Because I know we're all in business, but we want to improve ourselves sometimes, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel that when I have acceptance into a master's of innovation and entrepreneurship with
Okay.
Queens. So it kind of lines up with what StrikeUp does.
Yeah.
But I just don't have the funds to pay for it as a mature student, and I'm wondering if there's something out there.
Yeah, it's important to look as well. It's going to vary a lot by provinces because I know some provincial governments have specific programs for returning students. So, do you mind telling me in which province you are? Maybe that can help me look for my
Yes,
research.
yes, yes. We're in Ontario, the center of the
Ontario.
world.
Nonetheless, perfect.
Sorry, it's the truth.
All right, I will look through that and see what we have internally in terms of resources that can help you in your research. And I'll send that to the StrikeUp team and they can include that in the email.
Okay. Okay. And Heather, I may be coming back to you in the future once I start the program for entrepreneurship in, a project. I may use you as a project.
Perfect. So we at Inventure here, so the founders of StrikeUp, we also do have what we call our Delia Microloan Fund for women entrepreneurs. So that's something you may want to take a look at as well from a financing perspective once you dive into your entrepreneurial journey, because it's there to support startups as well as
what's it called again? Sorry,
Delia. So I'll throw that here in the chat.
Okay, Delia. Okay.
Oh, we've got it there. Yeah, so it's a loan fund that's specifically supported by the Government of Canada to support women entrepreneurs and underserved communities. So it could be a good resource for you once you dive into your.
Yes, I feel like I want to meet Delia for sure. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your question. Okay. Do we have any other questions from those that we've got here live today? No? Okay, I'll give you a moment, Corinne, if you want, if you've got any kind of final wrap up final thoughts and tips for us.
No, that's pretty much it for me today. I'll make sure to include the link to the study with the email that will follow tomorrow. I hope it was interesting and you at least learned one new thing today. So that was my goal today, just to have at least one new thing for you to learn today.
I mean, I know I absolutely did. I am a data junkie myself. I absolutely love it. So seeing the charts is really fantastic for me on a personal level. So much to share. Really, really appreciate your time here with us today. Oh, we've got one other question in here before we let you go. What can we expect from BDC for sustainable and green skincare?
Maybe can you clarify the question? What do you mean what we can expect from BDC? Do you mean in terms of specific like loan or advice products for that market?
Give her a moment just to clarify. In the meantime, if you want to clarify your question there, we can look at from loan and advice product analytics.
We don't have specialized product for sustainable and green skincare specifically, but we do have a variety of products. So it really depends on what you're looking for. What's your projects into that? Are you looking into enter the market, expand? So we have different experts that can help you on different topics, but not specifically for green skincare.
Perfect. Thanks, Corinne. Want to just say thank you so much for sharing your deep knowledge, valuable insights, actionable tips to help Canadian small business owners not just grow, but thrive. Your creative solutions address both challenges of today and opportunities of tomorrow. So on that note, StrikeUp Connects webinar series will now take a pause and a break until the spring as we shift our focus into preparing for StrikeUp 2025, our main digital conference event, which again is free. So don't forget to mark your calendars for Thursday, February 27th, when we return to the digital stage with a day packed with dynamic speakers, insightful discussions, and unparalleled networking opportunities with women entrepreneurs all across the country. So we can't wait to share more details about keynotes, panels, and workshops that will address the unique challenges of women entrepreneurs across the country. So be sure to stay connected by signing up for a newsletter for speaker announcements and event updates. So just a reminder again, this will be recorded and sent out to all of you tomorrow. So once again, I want to say a heartfelt thank you to Kareem from BDC for joining us today, and a huge thank you to all of you for being here and celebrating BDC Small Business Week with us. We look forward to seeing you at StrikeUp 2025. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, all.